Where do you see Americus in the next 5 to 10 years?
I hope we see it growing again. So I'll go back to when I moved here back in 1981. We had Davidson Rubber, that was a big employer here. You had Cooper Lighting that employed over 1,000. And over the last 20 or 30 years, we've seen companies like that exit this area.
Yeah.
And because of that, we've really scrambled. All the leadership of the city and the county, I think, have given effort. But what do you do when you lose such big employers? And now we're slowly starting to see some of that come back. We've got a lot of prospects, I think, that are looking now. So I think our economic situation here in Sumter County should get better over the next few years, and that has a trickle-up effect. So I hope to see us more economically stable.
Yeah.
And when you are economically stable, other things tend to fall in place. I think our colleges are doing a great job. We see both of them growing right now. We got a great new high school in Americus, Sumter High School, right across the street from South Georgia Tech. So we got some good things that are going on. Nothing happens overnight in government.
Yeah.
And so I think it's going to take 4 or 5 years to where we finally sit back and go, you know what, we are making progress. And I think the wheels are turning right now. A lot of folks don't see that.
Yeah.
But I think 5 years from now, we'll say, yeah, you're right. They were turning and we're getting better.
Welcome to the Americus Podcast, where we're learning what it means to become a next-level neighbor, creating a place we enjoy with the people we love. Today, as the host, John Schroeder, I am joined by Tim Estees. Tim is the executive director of the Sumter County Parks and Recreation Department, and the host of his own podcast called Integrity Sports Podcast. Tim, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, John. I've had a chance to watch a few of your episodes and really like what you're doing here.
Thank you, Tim. So let me ask you this. What's one thing, being a part of the recreation department, and you've been doing this for almost 30 years now, 28, coming on 29 years. What's one thing about the Parks and Rec Department in Americus that most people might not know, but that you think that they should?
That we're available to all, regardless of your financial status, regardless of your age. We have something for the entire family.
That's huge. That's a big deal. I hope people know that and that they continue to step into it. I know that my family has utilized the rec department. My son has played football last year. He's looking forward to it this year. He'll be 12 and under. And my daughter does the gymnastics there. So really great programs there. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Let me ask you this. What inspired you to pursue a career in the parks and recreation, and tell me a little bit about that field particularly.
Sure. Well, I grew up here in Americus and was a participant in the Parks and Rec Department. It was also my first job. At 16 years old, back in the 80s, you could get a part-time job, paid job as a coach. Now, we don't have that anymore, but back then, that was my first job. I went to college over in Montgomery, Alabama at a small Christian college called Faulkner University. And in the summers there, I would work with the Parks and Rec Department as a grunt, as a laborer. I would cut grass. I would weed eat. I worked on a chain crew for a while where we fixed chain link fence. But I did that in the summers as I pursued my degree. I went to school really to be a high school baseball coach and teacher.
Okay.
But as it worked out, when I graduated from college, I had built a reputation in the recreation department, and they had a job opening, a full-time job opening, and offered it to me. So I kind of got into it. I don't say by accident, but because I had been there, and just have never gotten out of it.
Wow. Well, I know that when we talk about a next level neighbor and we're talking about neighboring well together, values are really, really important. And so one of the things that I've just noticed about your story, just reading it a little bit and kind of watching what you do, is determination is very, very important to you. Again, especially being engaged, being invested for over, again, almost 30 years now. And you're invested in community involvement and public service. I've noticed that you're involved in improving the quality of life for residents through providing access to recreational activities. I mean, that's huge. And I love that. So Tell me a little bit about your family life growing up. I would love to hear just about what were your family dynamics.
Sure. I come from a large family. My father, Jim Estees, worked at what was then Buckeye Cellulose in Oglethorpe. That's what actually got us to Americus.
Okay.
It was part of the Procter & Gamble company, and he was in the management side of things, so that brought us here. Got to grow up in a great neighborhood over around the Lake Collins area, where we had a lot of friends that would play together and learn to fish there at Lake Collins. Had several brothers and a sister. I have 3 brothers and 1 sister.
All right, in order.
I'm the oldest.
Okay, you're the oldest, okay.
I have a brother, Steve, who now lives in Chicago, Illinois.
Wow.
And works with the Reynolds Corporation that most folks know as Reynolds Wrap. My brother Jay, who also went to Americus High School, he's in the Ackworth, Georgia area now. My brother John is working out at the Sumter County CI. He lives here in this community in Leslie, Georgia.
Okay.
And then my sister Leanne is in Boonville, Mississippi, where my parents are now. She's married with 4 kids, so we had a great childhood here. Just a lot of fun growing up in the Americus area.
So I would assume that you had some responsibilities, being the oldest, helping raise, being a part, making sure everybody's doing their job. What kind of personality were you? Were introvert, extrovert? I mean,
I like to think I was an extrovert. I was a high school athlete. Played basketball and baseball growing up here at Americus High School.
Okay.
Went to college on a baseball scholarship, so the basketball thing kind of went away.
Okay.
But my brothers were also athletes, so I got to follow them. My brother Steve was the quarterback at Americus High and one of their top pitchers on the baseball team. My brother Jay played center. So while I was in college, I got to come back every weekend in the fall and watch them play high school football, and that was a lot of fun.
Okay. So now when you say the Americus Sumter High School, are you referring to the one on Harold or are you referring to the one on Reese Park? Because I know that there's...
No, I'm not that old, John.
Okay, all right. I don't know. I'm always new.
Yeah, Harold Avenue was where Americus High School was at. And that was, of course, before the merger. So it was Americus High School and not Americus Sumter at the time.
Okay. So when you were going through, it was just Americus.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
I would love to know, because I think sports is one of those community environments where people do come from different ages and different cultures just to come to play a sport that they love and enjoy. What was like sports? How much did sports play a big role in you in just growing up physically, emotionally, culturally, as just growing up?
Played a huge part. In fact, I would tell you there were 2 big factors as I grew up here in Americus that really kept me grounded, and that was my involvement in sports, both at the rec level and then at the high school level. And then, of course, my church family at the time went to Williams Road Church of Christ here in Americus. And so those 2 things really played a role in shaping me as a young child.
Okay. All right. So you're playing, you mentioned focusing more on baseball. Tell me a little bit about that part of that career. How far did you go? What did you want? What were your aspirations? Did you want to play in the big leagues, or were you just enjoying kind of wherever you were going at the time?
Well, I think as a high school athlete and you start having a little success, you think a lot more of yourself than reality is. And so, as a high school athlete, I saw a lot of success. Knew going into my senior year, several schools were interested in me playing there, so that was a lot of fun to go through the recruiting process. Landed at Faulkner University mainly because of their Christian background, and the family was happy with that decision. And so they had a great baseball program at the time. In fact, had won a national championship a couple of years before I got there. But really, John, about 2 weeks into the college career, I realized I wasn't as good as I thought I was. And it took me probably a full year to really grasp the college level of play. It's a lot of work, a lot more work than I was used to. So just played a couple of years of college baseball and decided, you know what, this is not for me, but coaching may be. And so I kind of pursued that route.
Okay. So just was it just a part of the play? Was it about the coaching and the the way that they coach, or maybe just even some of the players and what you saw from the players that you're just like, I don't know if this is something that I just want to continue to grow in? Tell me a little bit about, like, what do you mean by that?
Well, you get to that level and you find out everybody on the team is good. They're there for a reason, and especially at a program like Faulkner, which is a perennial power, and to this day, for 35 years, has been one of the top teams in the country in the NAIA. So I get there. I did have the pleasure of having a pitcher. Our ace pitcher was a guy named Shane Reynolds, which many people that are Braves fans may remember. Shane went on to play 12 years in the big leagues, 10 of those years with the Houston Astros, his final 2 years with the Atlanta Braves. So when you're playing with folks that have major league qualities, we had 2 or 3 others off my teams while I was there that played pro ball and never made it to the major leagues, but spent 4 or 5 years in the minor leagues. You know, we had guys that were a lot more talented than I was. Okay. The camaraderie was great. Yeah. I loved it. But eventually you have to look in the mirror and think, can I keep succeeding at this level? Yeah. And it was so much work, and just with the school work and knowing that I wasn't going to play Major League Baseball or professional baseball at any level, that kind of changed my motivation.
Yeah. I love that, and I'd love to dive into that just a little bit, because I think there are a lot. I mean, when we think about sports, I mean, especially with the recreation department here, there are a lot of kids, there's a lot of students that want to play professional ball, whether that's basketball, baseball, football, whatever they're pursuing in some way, soccer. But when you get to that certain level, I mean, you do have to have you got to play at a high level. And so obviously just enjoy it as you're a kid, but how do you prepare yourself, or how did you prepare yourself, or did you just come to that realization and say, hey, listen, this is something I really, really enjoy, but I didn't let it dominate me to where I feel like I can't do anything, or, I had this aspiration that I couldn't get to, with so many people looking for sports to be their ticket.
Yeah, no question that I loved it coming out of high school and lived and breathed sports, but it never was a job. It never was full-time. And you get to the college level, and it's pretty close to a full-time job. I'll give you a good example. As a freshman, I would go to class from 8 in the morning to lunch. As a catcher, pitchers and catchers usually have to report a little before everybody else. So I was usually on the field by about 1:30. Okay. We'd get done about 5:30. You'd go to supper, and you're just dog tired by 6:30, 7 o'clock. But you still have to study for class. And to do that for a few years, just really wears on you. And if you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel of, hey, I've got a chance for this to be something I'm going to do for a living, it was a slap in the face. Mm-hmm.
So you kind of started seeing yourself more in the coaching role. Tell me a little bit about that. So kind of stepping out of that and finishing up school, where did you find yourself?
Sure. Well, like I said, I started here as a teenager, and that kind of gave me a love for coaching. When I stepped away from the game as a player, I had built some contacts in Montgomery, and immediately when they found out I wasn't playing, one of the guys I knew asked me to come and coach a youth baseball team with him, a 12 and under baseball team. And so I did that, and I loved it, had a lot of success, was asked to coach their all-star team, which went on to win the city championship, the district championship, and got into the state tournament. So that really lit a fire under me.
That's amazing. That's fun. It's fun when you be able to see that take place. And so okay. So now you're doing that, you're investing into the city. Do you feel as if you're going to go anywhere else at that point, or do you feel like, no, I'm going to lock in, I'm going to start investing more and more here?
Well, at that point, I still felt like I was going to coach on the high school level. I was in school to be a PE teacher and a coach. What really stopped that was when I quit playing and I met with an advisor. And, as a college athlete, you're usually taking the bare minimum so that you can stay eligible, but you don't have too hard a load. Yeah. And, after 3 years of school, they're telling me you've got 2, maybe 3 more years before you can graduate in education. Okay. And I was really burnt out, had a very serious girlfriend who's now my wife. Yeah. And thought, I don't need to be in school for 3 more years. So I kind of looked at some different options and changed gears and went into business administration. And that's what I eventually got my degree in. So kind of hard to teach and coach with a business degree, especially in the public schools. And so when the Parks and Rec Department in Montgomery offered me the full-time job, because I had that degree, that allowed me the opportunity to be around sports and also earn a living.
I love it. Love it. So let's talk a little bit about the recreation department. So you have been there, again, for a really long time, investing into the community. You are the executive director now, but you've kind of worked your way through that. I'd just love to hear, how many people does the Park and Recreation Department serve on an average year?
On an average year, we're going to serve anywhere from 1,500 to 1,700 different kids.
Okay.
Now, many of those are repeat. They may play baseball and then basketball and then football, but 1,700 different kids are going to be involved in one program or another.
Wow. Okay. And how is because I just don't know. I would assume there's probably maybe at least one, maybe two, but how is it funded every year?
We're funded by the Sumter County Board of Commissioners through tax dollars.
Okay.
Our entire budget comes from that. We do generate funds through user fees. When you sign up for any program that we have, all of those have user fees attached to them. What it's hard to explain to people sometimes is those user fees aren't used, they're not turned around and used for recreation. So everything that we generate goes back into the county's general fund.
Okay.
So every year when I'm preparing the budget, I have to look at all the line items and project what we're going to bring in per line item. And I give a projected revenue.
Okay.
And then they give me an expenditure budget. And so, for instance, let's just, for good round numbers, say that our budget's $1 million a year, and we're going to bring in $175,000 a year.
Yeah.
Well, the difference in that is what the county's actually funding.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. That helps out a lot. Well, what are some things, maybe some challenges that you faced in your role as the executive of the Park and Recreation Department in Americus?
Well, one of the biggest challenges we have is we have such a small staff. And we have 8 full-time staffers and use a lot of part-time, a lot of seasonal workers, and would love to have more full-time staff and hope we can get there over the next few years. But our staff does a tremendous job. We do a lot with a little, and I tell people that all the time. We've got dedicated people. If you look at how many years have our staff been in place, we just don't have very much turnover, especially at the upper management level. All 3 of our top level people have been there 15 years plus.
Wow.
And so that tells you that those folks are really dedicated to what they do.
Yeah. Yeah. So what would just be maybe a solution or two that would help to make it less understaffed?
Well, we see some good things happening economically here in Sumter County. Got some really good prospects of large businesses coming to town that I don't know if a lot of that's public yet, but we really feel like over the next few years with those businesses coming to town, I know this may be a sour subject with some of our farm community, but the solar farms that are being constructed right now will certainly produce some tax revenue upon the sale of that power that will generate a few more dollars into the tax base here in Sumter County. So if we can build a little greater tax base, so that our funding is better.
Yeah.
I feel certain our Board of Commissioners is very supportive of recreation and would allocate some of those funds toward building our staff.
That would be great. I love that. Well, you had mentioned about, part of the recreation and one of the things that people need to know is that it's accessible for everyone. More people just need to be involved or know that they can be involved, and that money is not an issue in that. We just come and learn that. So how do you work to ensure that the Parks and Recreation facilities in Americus is accessible and welcoming to all of its members and community, regardless of their age or race or gender or whatever?
Well, we have ages set up for all of our programs, so you can find out what age each of the programs starts at and finishes at. What we've had to do over the years, John, is really look at how can we partner with the school systems here in Sumter County, both public schools and private schools. And what we did a few years ago is we looked and all schools started offering sports at least by middle school age. And so we don't want to step on those toes.
Yep.
So our kind of target market is from very early on, as early as 18 months in gymnastics.
Yeah.
And we try to end our youth sports program once a kid reaches the age of 12,
Okay.
which usually is around the 6th grade. If they can stay with us through the 6th grade, then we kind of turn them over to their respective schools, and they can get involved in the scholastic ages. We also offer adult programs. We've got adult church league softball that's going on right now.
Okay.
Try to do as much as we can for the adults, but on the adult side, and especially on the senior citizen side, we have to think about things like Magnolia Manor, who has a very good wellness center and wellness program that's open not just to their residents. It's open to anybody of, I think it's 50 or 55 and older.
Yeah.
And so we don't want to do anything that would hamper what they're doing. And so we've really got a target market that we're shooting for right now.
No, that's good. So how do you measure the success of Parks and Rec? Of the department in Americus? Is it numbers? Is it dollars? Is it people? Is it
numbers also always plays a part. It gives you some indication. It's an indicator. If your program is growing, evidently people like it. Word of mouth's getting out, and more people want to be a part of it. Consequently, if it's going the other direction, you need to look at what can we do better.
Yeah.
COVID threw a monkey wrench into that. A lot of folks really scared of the COVID pandemic. And, of course, we had to shut down a little while during that to kind of get our bearings about us and say, what can we do to provide these programs in the safest environment possible?
Yeah.
And we did that. We only stayed shut down for about 2 months, found a way to do some programs during the height of COVID where we limited the number of people that could come into our gyms, or we painted squares out at the soccer field and said, your family only needs to pick a square.
Yeah.
And you sit by family. And if you weren't there with the family, if you were there as an individual, we had things along the fence where you could stand 6 feet apart. We had hand washing stations. We had so much hand sanitizer. I don't know if we'll ever get rid of all the hand sanitizer that we amass, but numbers are a part of that. The other thing I think of is how much criticism are we getting? Because when you're talking about people's kids, they're very emotional.
Yeah.
Most of the folks in our programs have been constructive in their criticism, and we always want constructive criticism. But how much of that is valid? And when I sit at my desk and think, okay, I got this complaint, is this valid or is it emotional?
Yeah.
We have to really look in the mirror and say, what do we need to do better?
Wow. So what would you say are some of the most popular programs or events that you guys do every year?
Well, baseball traditionally has been our largest program, and it's the one that in every community, everybody kind of plays baseball. And we don't do girls softball. A private program here in town does that. But you can look at pretty much every community in the state of Georgia, and baseball is going to be their largest program. Gymnastics. We made the decision back in 2008 to start a gymnastics program. And we are the only publicly funded gymnastics program south of Atlanta, I believe.
Okay.
Unless something started fairly recently. And that program has grown and grown, and we're now up to where we're running about 170 kids in our rec gymnastics program and 30 kids on our gymnastics team.
Wow.
So when you've got 200 kids that are doing gymnastics year-round, that's really good.
That's a big deal. Well, how do you, as the executive, how do you celebrate wins together as a department when you see something happen and you just want to celebrate it? What does that look like with you guys in the office or just?
Yeah, as the director, one of my main jobs is to be the biggest cheerleader I can be for my staff. Because you got to put good folks around you, and I've done that, and they do the work.
Yeah.
I get a lot of credit for the work that they do, so I try to make sure I'm patting those folks on the back and letting them know how good a job they're doing. Our community does a good job of that. A lot of times I don't have to because they're getting accolades from folks like you or the media. And certainly I want to pile on with that.
Yeah. So you mentioned several people that have been there for over 10 years. Could you just name a few and
Sure.
just kind of share a little bit about how they've made an impact in the department over the years that they've been there?
Absolutely. Coach Dwight Harris has been with us 13 or 14 years now. And Dwight runs our basketball program in the winter. That's always the first program starting in January. He runs our track and field program during the spring, our day camp program during the summer, and then we'll handle all of our football program during the fall. And Dwight is a man of character. He was recently named the Spill Joy character guy for Chick-fil-A here in Americus. They just started a new program, and he was their first honoree, and well deserved. And then Jeff Fussell has been with us a little over 15 years now.
Wow.
Jeff handles our baseball program during this time of year. His biggest job is during the summer, where he's handling our all-star baseball teams and all of our aquatics. So we've got 2 public swimming pools and a splash pad that he's over.
Yeah.
And then he'll handle our soccer program in the fall.
Yeah.
And he's also very involved on the state level with the Georgia Recreation and Park Association. So those 2 guys right there do the lion's share of the work when you look at any program that we have. And then, of course, I've mentioned our gymnastics program. Melissa Singley is our only full-time person in the gymnastics, and I recruited her when we started this. She came here from Hendersonville, Tennessee.
Oh, wow.
And Melissa's been with us ever since, the only gymnastics director we know, and just has continually grown that program. So we've got a good group.
Wow. Well, I've noticed on Facebook, because Facebook is the great place to go and find new things and what people are thinking and saying behind a keyboard, right? In many ways, but just comments about youth and students, nowadays, especially in Americus, how they're, struggling to find things and activities to be a part of. And as you mentioned, depending on the age, if you guys are marketing up from 18 months to, 12 years, after that 12-year gap, what does that look like for them? And I've always just kind of thought through, what are some activities, what are some things that the city can participate in that you believe that might be helpful for students that once they leave the recreation department that they can get involved in?
Well, on our end, what I've tried to do recently is really hit that older teenage group and maybe even college age and tell them, we need your services. We need you to come and be a volunteer coach with us. We need umpires. We need scorekeepers, concession workers. You can continue to give back by being a part of that in one of those ways. And I don't think we've done a very good job so far of hitting that age group and teaching them. You can be a big part of this. So that's going to be a part of my focus over the next couple of years, is trying to get that group in. We certainly have a gap in this area with entertainment. We don't have a bowling alley. We don't have the skating rink. We don't have a movie theater. So what do kids do for a date here in this area? And so we're starting to look at what can we offer that may be, something that a high school couple that's 16 or 17 years old, what would they want to do? What are some events we could program that would be of interest to them? Got something coming down the pike on that. We've got a SPLOS project coming up that will have a track that will go around all 3 of our football, soccer fields with an amphitheater there. One of the things we're hoping to do in the very near future is things like movies in the park on the big blow-up screen, concerts in the park, that not just those folks, but adults would enjoy coming to.
Yeah, I think that's huge because in one sense, if you're not a sports kid, which not every kid is a sports kid, they're going to look for other activities, like you said, whether that's in the arts, whether that's, in crafts or music lessons or drama, those types of things. And the city is working towards trying to do some of those things. Like my son tries to get involved with the Sumter Players, for the Rylander Theater and things like that. But trying to figure out about other activities other than if you're just not the sports kid, if you just don't think about sports, there's still something for you to participate in. I think that's really, really great.
Absolutely.
So, so you mentioned that there's some upcoming projects. We don't have to get into those, your initiatives. That's really great though, because you're
I'd like to get into a few of them.
I would love to.
Okay.
I didn't know if you could. I didn't know if you could say it.
Some of them we're not 100% sure about yet, so I don't want to say that. But some were a part of the recent SPLOST referendum.
Okay.
And we've completed a few of those. We've put new basketball goals into the columns that can be lifted with the flick of a key. So we can play multiple age groups on the same night now just by simply turning a key and raising or lowering the goals.
Yeah.
That was a part of the SPLOST. The project I just mentioned with the paved walking trail and the amphitheater, that'll be a part of that SPLOST. One of the big ones coming up over the next couple of years, we'll be demolishing the old Rucker Street swimming pool and building a new swimming pool in the same footprint. I don't know if it'll be in the exact same location. Probably will be closer to where our splash pad is now.
Okay.
So that people could come in and access both the splash pad and the new swimming pool.
Yeah.
So some of those things we're really excited about. One of the things we're waiting on is we've applied for a major grant.
Okay.
It's called Improving Neighborhoods in Disproportional Areas.
Okay.
And so the Department of Community Affairs gave us a map of Sumter County. And some of the neighborhoods in there were picked out as low income, or the median household income didn't meet a certain criteria, and they were qualified areas. Well, 3 of our parks were in those areas.
Wow.
So we have applied for some grant money. We haven't been notified if we've gotten that yet. If we do, all of those funds are earmarked for construction of parks. So we would basically go into those parks, totally take out what's there, redo them. And when I tell you these would be really nice, we're talking 8-foot sidewalk borders with matching park benches and trash cans and picnic pavilions, AstroTurf surfacing underneath the new playgrounds. Something really nice. So we're very hopeful that we're going to get those funds and be able to do that. We've got SPLOST funds allocated for the playgrounds that are not in that grant, that didn't qualify for that grant. So here's the hope, John. We're hoping that we get the grant so we can use the grant funds to do the qualified areas and the SPLOST funds to do the non-qualified areas.
Yeah.
And over about a 3-year period, we'd be able to rehab every single park in our park system.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. Do you know when you would possibly hear back from such a grant? I mean,
well, they started out by telling us it would be the end of February.
Okay.
We got an email telling us that so many people had applied that they've just been overwhelmed, and to give them till the end of April to dig through all that. So here we are, close to the end of April.
Yeah. Well, hopefully there'll be some good news coming. That'd be great.
Right.
Could you apply for that every year if you?
No, it's a one-time grant. The governor was allocated $250 million through the CARES Act, and we have applied for a portion of that.
Oh, that would be great. That would be really great. I'm always interested on the parental involvement too in the Parks and Rec. Do you see a lot of parents being involved and engaging?
Absolutely, yeah. I talk to a lot of my colleagues at district and state meetings, and we hear that a lot. I just don't see that much here in Sumter County. We've got a tremendous parental involvement. A part of that is because of the way we've set our programs up, and parents have to bring them to the park. Now, do we have some drop-offs? Yes, sometimes parents will drop them off and leave and come back and pick them up. But I wouldn't say that's the norm. That's the exception.
Yeah. Well, we've always enjoyed it. Like I said, with Judah playing football, we loved seeing families and just participating in that right out there. I can't remember the open fields where, the football.
At the regional
soccer.
park.
Yeah, it's really, really great. We have a great time doing that. So we've really enjoyed it. So if there are, children, as obviously you want more and more kids to be involved, what are some ways to get the kids there or to be a part of that? Talking with the parents, engaging with maybe this, like you said, the school system. What are some ideas to get more kids involved? Well,
we've kind of changed our advertising approach. Part of that's been financially driven as the cost of things have gone up. And now what we're doing is we're making our own flyers, own copies in our own office. And we've gotten with every school, we know how many kids are in each classroom in each grade. And we'll have our own office staff to make those flyers. They'll divide them by classroom so that we can take those to every school, drop them off. They're already, if you got 25 in 7 classes, you got 7 classes of 25 flyers that we can hand you.
Yeah.
And so we've been doing that for about a year now, and we've seen growth over the past year because the information is actually getting in their hands. Another thing that we've started doing, we use a new computer-based registration system called Civic Rec. So when you register for a program, we have your email information. Your account is set up based on your email. So we can look back and see the kids that played in the program the previous year. Those that have aged out, we don't have to send an email to, but those that are supposed to come back, we shoot them an email. So we're trying to hit them in several different ways, and we still do. We advertise in the Americus Shopper. We advertise on local radio. So we try to hit them pretty much every way we can.
Well, I know this, when we signed up, we kind of did our, we had to, before we could log in, we had to sign up, and we went through the program and said, Jess is this age, Jude is this age. And it was very helpful because it was like, these are the programs that would work for your kid at this age. And I was like, oh, that's great. And this is, you can register today for that. And so kudos on that, because that program was very helpful to me just as a parent to say, there's a whole bunch of programs on here. I don't even know where to start. But if you just fill out the information, it'll help direct you to your child will be eligible for these things. So anyone out there that's listening going, hey, how do I plug in? Fill that form out first and then sign in, and you'll have a lot of that available to you. So
absolutely.
Great
and
job
John,
on doing that.
Let me make sure I throw the website out there too, because the best way to stay in contact with us is through our website.
Yeah.
And you can reach that at www.scprd. Just think Sumter County Parks and Rec Department, scprd.org.
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly what I was referring to. It's really great. It's got a lot of great information on there. So, all right, I was going to ask this question as well. What advice do you give someone who's interested in pursuing a career in the Parks and Recreation Department with y'all? That's
a good question. Unfortunately, in the state of Georgia, we only have one college now that offers Parks and Rec as a major, and that's Georgia Southern.
Okay.
So if you're interested in it, by all means, hit Georgia Southern, and we hope to improve that in the coming days. The other thing I would tell you is no matter what field you're going in, get involved in wherever you're at in the Parks and Rec Department. We have a state association, Georgia Recreation and Parks Association, that I'm heavily involved in. We go and have cookouts at almost every college every year and tell folks there are careers. There's a lot of jobs currently available in Parks and Rec. We tell them about the jobs, what the entry-level salary ranges can be, and try to spark a little interest. We've had a little success in that, not as much as we had hoped. So now we're starting to go into high schools. When we have GRPA events at certain cities, we try to make arrangements to go into the high schools and talk to some of the senior classes and let them know what they can do. So hopefully through several different avenues, we can kind of beat the drum and get a few more folks involved.
Yeah, and especially with having like new facilities, if that's possible, it's always encouraging to say, yeah, I want to be a part of this. This looks great. So that would be amazing. So I would love to ask questions about the other thing that you do on the side.
Sure.
Your new podcast that you've been doing called Sports Integrity or Integrity Sports Podcast.
Integrity Sports Podcast.
Okay,
yes.
So tell me about that link along with just kind of, it's still within the sports world. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Integrity Sports Podcast is available on 10 different platforms, and I don't know all of them, to tell you the truth. I use a company called StreamYard, so I do mine kind of like a Zoom call. We record a Zoom call, I upload it to StreamYard, and then they shoot it out to the different podcast platforms. The best way I can tell you to find us is YouTube. Just go on to YouTube, type into the search bar Integrity Sports Podcast, and please hit the subscribe button. We're trying to build up to 1,000 subscribers.
Yeah, that'd be great.
We're at about 150 right now. So
that's great.
Hopefully over the next year or so, we'll get up to that 1,000 mark. But here's the premise, John. I started this 13 weeks ago because I've coached baseball for 28 years in the summer, and recently had 2 grandbabies, and my wife, Tammy, said, we're done with baseball. Every vacation we've had for 28 years has been tied to baseball.
Yeah.
And so we're going to start doing some stuff with the grandkids. Well, I was looking for something to really stay involved in the high school level and beyond. And the podcast, I had a buddy that was doing one over in Auburn. And I thought, people just don't pick up the newspaper like they used to and read human interest stories about local sports. We got a lot of positive stuff going in Sumter County in sports. And so I started this Integrity Sports Podcast with the focus of I'm doing only positive stuff that will affect 5 schools in our area. I'm trying to hit Sumter County High, Southland Academy, Sly County, and then the 2 colleges, South Georgia Tech and Georgia Southwestern. And we'll talk to coaches, sports administrators, and even student athletes. Each week we try to do about a 20 to 30-minute interview with one of them and try to focus on what's going on that's really good in your school right now. And it's grabbed legs. We've had sponsors that have reached out, so what wasn't intended to be a moneymaker has now given us a little side income.
Yeah.
So that's always good, but things are going well with that.
Good. I would love to hear, so you're talking about sports. Do you kind of go just with the local sports, or you talk about like how the bigger sports are impacting the smaller sports and local sports? Tell us like some of those interviews.
Well,
sound like.
My first episode was with both the women's basketball coaches at South Georgia Tech and Georgia Southwestern. At the time, both of them were ranked number 1 in the country.
Wow.
And so I thought, not many people in this community probably know that. And so we wanted to shed some light on that. We've talked to student athletes about what's it really like to be a teenager, a student athlete in 2023, and let them, from their perspective, tell folks what it's like to go through the recruiting process these days. Now that you're having to deal with the NCAA portal, and that's really hurt. We've talked to legendary coaches like Carl Willis, who coached here for probably 40 years.
Wow.
And one of the neat things on that, John, is after his episode, I had someone reach out to me from the state of New Jersey, said they had lived here as a teenager. Coach Willis had coached them, and what a big impact he had had on his life, and wanted to know, how do I get his number?
Wow.
So I had to reach out to Coach Willis and say, hey, this guy's calling. Can I get your number and pass it on? And so it's been really neat to see the good things that are going on, and I think people are enjoying that.
That's good. What is what's a kind of a hot topic right now in the sports world?
Recruiting is a big topic. A lot of folks are familiar with the new NCAA portal, where let's say that you go to Auburn and you play there for a year and things just don't work out. You're not liking it for whatever reason. You're not getting to play. You can get in the portal and go somewhere else. I don't think the NCAA understood the trickle-down impact that would have. And so you think about a high school kid these days. He's going to graduate in 2 months. And 5 years ago, he may have signed with Georgia Southern or even the University of Georgia. But now those folks know, well, I may be able to wait and see what's going to be in the portal, and I'm not going to sign this high school kid. I'm going to sign somebody that's already got a year or 2 or 3 of college experience. And so it's really forced those kids in high school that may have been a Division II or a Division I athlete. Now they're more NAIA or junior college or Division III. And so that's kind of been a hot topic lately.
Wow. What has, do you have like, I know you're only, what you said, like 13 in? 13 episodes in.
Yeah.
Is there one that it was the most enjoyable or just the most intellectual podcast you've had with just talking about sports?
Well, I had one 2 weeks ago with a guy named Zach Blackerby, who is the host of Locked On Auburn, which has over 10,000 subscribers and over 50,000 viewers daily. And had a connection with him. We have a local guy from, I say local, he's from Ellaville, that plays football at Auburn. He decided to get into the portal last year.
Okay.
Well, they had a coaching change, and the new coach came in and talked him into coming back to Auburn. So Zach and I were able to talk about why did he get in the portal initially? Why did he come back? How did he do this spring during spring practice? And what's his outlook for the fall of 2023? And a lot of folks in this area know him. His name is Zacchaeus Walker. He's a great kid. A lot of folks thought coming out of high school he was going to be the next big thing, and I still think he should be.
Yeah.
And hopefully he will be coming this fall. But we talked about some of the reasons of why you get in the portal and why he came back, and that was a lot of fun. I'll give you a good example. I normally will have about 150 views on YouTube per week, and we had 1,800 the week that Zach was on there with me.
That's great.
A lot of his followers off his podcast came on. And then, of course, locally, I guess the Carl Willis interview that I mentioned, just heard from a lot of folks that he had impacted over the years.
That's amazing. So who would be like the top 3 people that you would love to interview right now?
Well, I really want to try to interview Jesse Cole, who is the owner of the Savannah Bananas.
Okay. I've heard about this team.
Yeah. They have really taken off and have been a big hit. And we've got a local kid that's playing with the Savannah Bananas in Dakota Albritton. He plays stilts. So if you ever see the Savannah Bananas play, the guy that is 9 feet tall on stilts is Dakota Albritton. He is from here, and so I'd love to interview Jesse Cole. I hear his speaking fee is enormous right now.
Yeah.
But he's one I'd like to interview. Got a neat one coming up this fall. A guy named Michael Pollock that used to be the head football coach at Americus Sumter High School is now an assistant coach at the University of Colorado with Deion Sanders.
Wow, that's great.
And so we're going to interview Michael about his time in Americus and the good things that he experienced here. And part of that, I hope we get Deion on for a little cameo during that. And so that'll be a lot of fun.
That's great. Just tell him to do it in his office.
That's right.
With a little Zoom call in his office where he's walking by. That'd be fun. That's great. Well, let's talk a little bit about the future of Americus, because becoming a next level neighbor, learning how to neighbor well together. Obviously, we want to see this city thrive. And so when you think about Americus, you've been here for a long time. Obviously, there's been some really great things that have taken place over the last few years. Really a lot of progression in a lot of ways of just people getting together and being in community together. Where do you see Americus in the next 5 to 10 years?
I hope we see it growing again. So I'll go back to when I moved here back in 1981. We had Davidson Rubber, that was a big employer here. You had Cooper Lighting that employed over 1,000. And over the last 20 or 30 years, we've seen companies like that exit this area.
Yeah.
And because of that, we've really scrambled. All the leadership of the city and the county, I think, have given effort. But what do you do when you lose such big employers? And now we're slowly starting to see some of that come back. Got a lot of prospects, I think, that are looking now. So I think our economic situation here in Sumter County should get better over the next few years, and that has a trickle-up effect. So I hope to see us more economically stable.
Yeah.
And when you are economically stable, other things tend to fall in place. I think our colleges are doing a great job. We see both of them growing right now. We got a great new high school in Americus Sumter High School right across the street from South Georgia Tech. So we got some good things that are going on. Nothing happens overnight in government.
Yeah.
And so I think it's going to take 4 or 5 years to where we finally sit back and go, you know what, we are making progress. And I think the wheels are turning right now. A lot of folks don't see that.
Yeah.
But I think 5 years from now, we'll say, yeah, you're right. They were turning and we're getting better.
Yeah, like I said, coming here, moving here in April, it seems like there's something that's happening. And so like I can see it, I get excited about it, and I want to continue to invest here as much as we can as well. So I think about, the future. Obviously, there needs to be certain things that we can do, even just individually or just as a community, that could see that take place as well. So if businesses are coming, there's certain things that we can do to prepare as an individual or maybe as a corporation or a company. So I always like to ask the question, if that's what we're looking for, and we want to see businesses and the economy grow in that, because it shows signs of health. What are some things, or what is one thing that we can start doing to make sure that happens? And then to the negative effect, what's one thing that we need to stop doing so that happens? And then just as a full-on community, things that are going always well, what's one thing that we can never stop doing as a city? So what's the one thing that we could start doing to see that happen, stop doing, and never stop doing?
The one thing I think we can start doing is getting together. One of the things I have to do as the Parks and Recreation Director is, when I look at programs that we're running, is it hurting another business? Is it hurting another government entity? I don't want to butt heads with anybody. I'll give you a good example of that. When we built the current community center that we're in, we could have put a fitness center in there. But we've got 3 or 4 private fitness centers here in town, and that's what they do for a living. And so we made the decision at that time not to put a fitness center in. We want those folks to be successful. So we've got to find ways to celebrate what others are doing well, and find our own niche and do that well. And that means getting together.
Yeah.
What was the next thing you said?
So what's the thing that we might need to stop doing?
I think we blame a lot. Instead of saying, what can I do to make it better? We always want to point our finger and say, they're doing this, if they would quit doing that. I think we need to quit playing the blame game and just be part of the solution.
Yeah, that's huge. Okay, and then what's one thing that's going really well that we just need to never stop doing?
I like the fact that the folks I deal with, the parents I see at the Parks and Rec Department, we're getting along well. If you come to any of our programs, you're going to see real diversity. You're going to see racial diversity and people getting along. You're going to see socioeconomic diversity, folks that have tons of money and could do whatever they want, to folks that really struggle to have their kids in those programs. And our folks, our Jeff Fussell, Dwight Harris, really all of our staff, do a really good job of making sure everybody feels equally as important. And so that's the one thing I hope we never quit doing.
Yeah.
Because this community built itself on people getting along and working together.
That's good. That's good. All right, so we're going to kind of start landing the plane a little bit. We do these rapid fire questions at the end of the interviews just to get a chance to get to know you a little bit better.
Sure.
So I'm going to throw some at you. All right, if when you leave this podcast, you're going to get in your car, you're going to turn it on. What's playing right now in your car?
Anything country.
Okay.
I'm all a country music guy.
Now, when you say country, you talking about new country, old country?
Any of it.
Any country. All right. You're in it.
Yeah.
You're in it to win it. Okay. What's your all-time favorite country singer, or do you have one?
I don't know that I have one. I really like Luke Combs right now.
Okay.
I listen to a lot of Luke Combs.
Nice. Okay. All right. If you had a time machine, would you travel in the future or would you travel in the past? And why?
I'd probably travel back to the past. I had such an enjoyable high school and college experience, both here in Americus and in Montgomery. I'd love to experience some of that again.
That's great. All right. If you could play on any team in any year, what would it be and why?
1988 Faulkner University baseball team.
Okay.
So many good people, so many good players that made me feel wanted and needed, and that was probably my best sports experience.
Wow. All right. If you were given $15,000 and plane ticket, you and your wife, where are you going, and what's the first thing you're going to do when you get there?
Well, I don't know that we would have to have a plane ticket. We'd probably take that $15,000 and go up to Helen, Georgia.
Nice. Okay.
My wife and I, as well as our 2 daughters and now their husbands and our grandkids, love to tube the Chattahoochee River. There's nothing as relaxing as being around that river up in the North Georgia mountains, and that's what we like to do.
I have tried those. I've done that. That's been a really fun experience, and I think we fell right in front of that little dining restaurant area. It's a very, very beautiful place.
But I will say this, John, you ask about a plane ticket. My bucket list item is I want to go out to Williamsport, Pennsylvania for the entire week of the Little League World Series.
Wow.
Hope I get a chance to do that sometime.
That would be great. Okay. Tell me, you may not have one, but tell me your best joke.
Oh, wow. I don't know. I'm not much of a jokester.
Okay. You got a dad
that
joke
would
for
take
us?
me a while.
You got a dad joke or
I
a
don't
granddad
know that
joke?
I do, John.
Okay. All right. You want to hear my dad joke for the week? All right. What do you call a cow with no arms and no legs?
A steak?
It's ground beef.
Yeah.
You like that?
I like it.
You like, yep. All right. Do you have an unknown talent or like a party trick that you like to do when people are around?
I don't know that I've got an unknown talent. My wife says that I can speak in any room.
Nice.
And so
just walk in.
A lot of times I talk when I probably shouldn't.
Okay. All right. If you could instantaneously become an expert in something, what would it be?
The Bible.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know that any of us will ever get there, but certainly want to make the effort to know God's word as best as I can.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. All right, last one. If you could eliminate one thing from your daily routine, what would it be and why?
Taking diabetic medicine.
Okay.
Yeah, found out a few years ago that I was diabetic. Don't have to take the shots yet. I take pills, but just hate to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Tim, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast right here. Again, we're learning what it means to become a next level neighbor, what you're doing, investing in this community for so many years. It just reminds me that people just need to be engaged. They just need to be here, and they need to stay here as long as they can to really invest, let people know you're serious and you want to see this city thrive. Thank you so much for what you do, especially with the new kind of just plans and ideas that just constantly are making it better, trying to figure out how to engage as much as possible. We look forward to being a part of the rec department in some way. I look part, maybe even helping doing some coaching with my son while he's playing. So we're very thankful for what you guys do. So continue to do all of that, and we'd love to hear a little bit more maybe in the future. So
thank you. I appreciate you having me, and trust me, what you're doing is making a difference as well. We need to make sure people know there are positive things happening here in Americus and Sumter County, and this is a great medium to spread that.
Yeah. Thank you, Tim. Thank you.